Good evening, this is John Milburn for Law's 11057 Introduction to Law. This is week 12 and tomorrow we have our take-home examination. Now I do want to cover a few things this evening. The first is dealing with the textbook and some of the pages that you'd need to consider. It seems to me that you should always consider the Priestley 11 and the threshold learning outcomes when you're answering a question in law. So the Priestley 11 deals with the categories of law, and the threshold learning outcomes, which are on page 26, are relevant to the take-home exam in that they provide some statement of what it is that we expect from you. Page 45 of your text deals with the categories of law, and the take-home message is don't concentrate just on the substantive law, think about the procedural law as well. To that end, I invite you to consider regulations, bylaws, or practice directions, as the case may be. There's a piece of information on page 96 that is important, and it deals with the difference between common law and equity. So when you're giving advice to a client, ask yourself a few basic questions, and one of those is, are you pursuing a common law remedy for equitable or an equitable remedy? It may be that you're seeking a combination of both. So you will need to know about injunctions and declarations. On page 124, there's some commentary about federal and state laws and remedies that are available to you. And when you're thinking about legislation, always think about delegated legislation. It may be, for example, in the planning and environment law question, that there are rules from the council which are made through delegated legislation that will have a bearing on the case. Page 146 of your text deals with the issue of sources of law in Australia and helps to explain the dichotomy between legislation or common law and in relation to common law, the doctrine of precedent. Page 165 deals with state and territory court systems. Bear in mind the financial limitations and also the fact that some courts, for example the Magistrates Court, have very limited jurisdiction to make orders that relate to, say, injunctions and declarations. Think about how you commence proceedings, and in that regard, from a civil law perspective, think about the Uniform Civil Procedure Rules of 1999. There's a statement there about what an originating proceeding means, and you'll see that it could be a claim and statement and claim, or it could be an application. So sometimes you make an application, and just have a look at the UCPR to give you a brief overview of when you make an application and when you make you commence proceedings by way of a claim. Page 189 deals with legal research skills and invites you to adopt a systematic approach to your research. Have a look at table 6.1 on page 196 because it gives you a guide as to planning your research. There is the chart on page 199, the cartwheel that many of you referred to in your toolkits. And the flow chart on page 201 is worth considering in that it gives you an overall guide to primary and secondary sources. For the take-home exam, obviously you need to have access to good quality materials, rely on those research skills that you've developed during the term, and obviously have access to, and make sure you have access to the university library for the online research platforms. Think about how you're going to attack the problem. Ask yourself whether you'll try to identify the material facts first and then research from there, or ask yourself whether you need to do a bit of preliminary research so that you can identify what is a material fact and what is not a material fact. There's no hard and fast rules for this. Now, Sharon, do you have a question? No? Okay. If you do have a question, please feel free to unmute and ask that question. Sharon, do you have a question? No? All right. So, page 174, sorry, 189 deals with the legal research skills and the importance of obtaining good quality information. Remember chapter 7 that deals with interpretation skills? You may need that if you're looking at a piece of legislation and trying to work out what it means. I'll ask a question generally now, and that is, if you do find it necessary to find out what a certain phrase or word means in a statute, where would you look to find an answer? Any thoughts?
In the dictionary of the statute itself.
Yes, very good. So look to the piece of legislation itself and look for a dictionary. And quite often the dictionary is referred to in a section, but yeah, the definitions, Melissa said, exactly right. And often the definitions are in a schedule. Where else might you consider looking?
The Acts Interpretation Act.
Yes, the Acts Interpretation Act. Thank you, Jade. Jess says secondary reading, textbooks, things of that nature. I agree with all of these things. There's a bit more though. Where else would you look if you're trying to get some idea of what a particular section in an act actually means? Had some good answers, but I think there's more. That Melissa's got the one that I'm after. Explanatory notes, which we find on the bill. So how do we find the explanatory notes? Does everyone know? Is anyone willing to tell us? Maybe even share the screen.
I could talk about it, but I don't think that I can share my screen. I don't have it up.
All right, Sundari.
It's on legislate. You can find it through legislation. I think it's legislation.gov.au, and you go to bills.
Yes.
And then you find the legislation, and then you go to the explanatory. There's a link through to explanatory notes.
Okay, good. Now, is that Queensland?
Right?
Yeah. Is that Queensland or is that federal? Is there a difference? Really?
I know you can find Commonwealth through there, but I'm not sure about Queensland as well.
Okay, so we probably need to be very clear tonight before we go to bed on how you might find the explanatory memorandum or the explanatory note at a state and federal level. All right, but they're good tips that you've collectively put forward in terms of how to understand the meaning of a particular provision in a statute if called upon to do so. Coming back to your text, really the only other thing are the thinking skills, and make sure that you've got your acronym sorted, whether you're going to go with IRAC or MIRAT or something of that nature. This is where your toolkit will help you, because you'll be working through the toolkit to work out what it is that you're going to write. Now that's the broad brush approach to what you might look at in your text if you want to spend half an hour or an hour flicking through that before you go to bed. Now for the actual writing. A few things that clearly I'll be looking for. The first is that you need to write in a formal manner. So no slang, no contractions, shouldn't, won't, etc. No text speak. So it's got to look and sound professional. Make sure that you are careful about grammar and punctuation. I'll be looking for that, as I will be for referencing. I'll show you a tip later, and I'll invite someone to share their screen with a Word document if you would. Before you commence writing, make sure that you analyse the question carefully and prepare some broad headings first. You can talk to each other about this assessment, but make sure that the work that you provide is your own. And if you do quote from material, make sure that you reference it. Ideally, you'll reference in accordance with the Australian Guide to Legal Citations, but if you don't get the referencing technically correct, please make sure that you identify the source of your work one way or the other. Everything's going through Turnitin, so I don't want to have any issues to do with plagiarism. When you're writing, write in complete sentences, and to some degree be precise about what you're doing. What you can do, if you've got time, is run your document through something like Google Translate, where the program will read what you've written. And sometimes if you hear what you've written, it will sound a bit odd and it will help to pick up mistakes. Otherwise, read it out aloud yourself. Make sure that each sentence is well formed and has a clear meaning. Make sure that your sentences are short. Tonight, try to sleep well, and tomorrow morning, be aware that when you look at the exam, you will more than likely feel immediately overwhelmed. You'll probably ask yourself, how do I do this? And that's normal. But try and break it down, breathe slowly, take a deep breath, clear your head, and get back on track. Maybe you've organised a meeting online or some other way with others at a certain time to talk through it, and that's fine. Make sure that you've got something that you can write, even if you don't know the answer. Make sure that you fill the space to some degree, because you might pick up some extra marks. Understand the difference between the way in which a question is asked. For example, understand what we mean by analysis or examine or study or evaluate or consider or investigate. For example, there are some differences. And I forget the page of the text that deals with those issues. Can anyone remind me what page of our textbook deals with those issues of the difference between analyse, evaluate, investigate, etc.? Any thoughts? No? Can't remember? All right. We'll try and find that, but I didn't make a note of the actual page, but there is a page there that deals with those issues. So just bear in mind that the question may give a guide as to how you're to write the answer. Page 291. Thank you, Melissa. Yes, 291 gives the basic differentiation between the way in which the question may be framed. So if you're providing an analysis, you have to identify, amongst other things, hidden features. So map out your work, prepare an introduction, have a distinct introduction, have a distinct body, and have a distinct conclusion to your work. What's in the introduction? Some background information, some comment about the main issue or issues, and probably an overview. I like an overview in an introduction. It's almost like writing a conclusion. In the body, there may be a number of components, and you may have to explain the different components, perhaps compare them, contrast them, and in the body you'll certainly be referring to legislation or case law. And in the conclusion you provide a summary and, importantly, justify your conclusion. you won't receive as good a mark for your work if you say something like, there are good arguments either way. Make a call. Your call may be completely different to what my call, the call that I make is, but you might still get 100%. So justify your argument and make your call. When you're presenting your work, make sure that you avoid the long-winded, wandering answers. Sometimes I see that when people type their material without saying their material, they tend to write very long sentences. So try to keep the sentences short and develop your argument logically. Now, how are you all going? Am I going too fast? So Hannah says, is there a specific form or structure of writing we have to provide, such as an essay? Well, in that regard, probably if you look at the issues that I've written on the pro forma that I've written is a good way to start. So the pro forma that I put on UCrew is just a basic outline of what you might want. But there is no prescribed form. You can go with it as you see fit. All right, now here's the important thing. Remember that the first half of the exam marks are easy to get, relatively speaking, to the second half. So if you're struggling, then make sure that you keep that in mind. It's easy to get the first half. Don't worry too much about the second half. They're the basic issues. Are there any questions? All good? I'll try and recover my camera. I don't know where this... I'm having difficulties here. But main thing is don't stress over this. It's all good. Most of you have done very well in the lead up, so you're not going to be far off already. For some of you, it's a matter of just turning up and you'll be fine. Write some material, but you will be overwhelmed at the start. All right. I'm going to ask for a volunteer. What I want is someone who's got a Word document that they can share on screen, and I want to walk you through a process that might help you for future reference. Is anyone willing to show me a Word document, and we'll see if we can share the screen? Nicholas, you're good at the share screening business.
I knew you were going to ask me that, John.
Oh,
what type of Word document were you looking for?
Absolutely anything. Now, embarrassingly, it could be, Taylor, you don't have to pass the exam to pass the subject. You just get to 50%, 49.5 as your total score, and we'll be right. Easily done. So it could be a study guide. It could be your assessment. It could be your toolbox. And it doesn't have to be Nicholas, but I'm just keen. Have we got someone? Because you'll like this. Don't worry, it's a good thing. I'm going to show you a little trick that I use when it comes to marking the toolbox. But it will help you down the track. Yes, Nicholas?
I've got something, John. Hang on. I'll just bring it up for you.
Thank you. Now, I'm going to ask everyone to do the same, just on your own screens. If you've got a split screen, or you can do this, try and bring up a Word document, and I want to go through it with you. Thank you, Nicholas. Some of you probably know this already. Okay, here we have the Legal Problem Solving Toolkit. Thank you very much. Now, Nicholas, if you would be kind enough to go to the top left-hand corner, File, Actually, before you do that, could you just quickly scroll through the document for me? Just so we can sort of generally see what's there. Can you hear me there, Nicholas?
Yes, John, I can
Oh,
hear
good.
you.
Oh, great.
I'm like you. I've got to juggle three
I
screens
know.
at once.
I've got to say, this is much better than the first time we attempted tonight's session. Thank you all for your patience and bearing with me. All right, so what we're doing now is we're looking at Nicholas's document. I'm going to invite Nicholas, when he can, to scroll down the document just in brief, just a brief look.
Right, so that's the bottom of the document. I'll just scroll back through it. There are
I didn't see
nine pages.
All right. I didn't see any change. I don't know how others went. Did anyone else?
Is anyone else seeing any change when I
No,
scroll?
I didn't see any change either. I've just seen the cover page.
Just the cover page. Yeah, we didn't see any change there. Nicholas?
Okay.
I would do this for myself, but for the moment, I've lost Word. I'm sorry. Here we go. We've seen a change. Now we can see 2 pages.
All right. Yeah, it stopped sharing for some reason, but there you go.
There it is. All right. So what we're doing is we're just looking at Nicholas's work, and I've got to say it's good work. Now you'll see that there's no red, blue, green, or anything else prompting. Now, while you've got that document there, could I ask you to now just stop when you're ready, Nicholas? Okay.
Yep.
Now, if you could go up to File, top left-hand corner. Yep. Click on that one. Now go down to Options. And if anyone knows where I'm going with this, feel free to just say, I know what you're doing, John. Now, Nicholas, do me a favour and go to Proofing, third one down on the left-hand side. Click on that. Okay. Now, we're in Proofing. I'm going to ask you to recheck the document, Nicholas, but before you do, just go down to Writing Style. At the moment, it's set to Grammar and More. Oh yeah, there we go. Just drop that down. All right, we'll stay with Grammar and More. Your version is a little different to mine. Just tick the box above, showing readability statistics. Okay, and now just click the Recheck document. Thank you for volunteering on this. Yes. Click Yes. And now click OK. And don't worry, Hannah, we'll try and find this on a Mac as well. Now, what should happen is your document, if there's any mistakes in it, should light up. Would you mind just scrolling to see if we can find anything, Nicholas? This is really, I've chosen a bad example with you. All right, let's try this then. Go over to up to Review. When I say I've chosen a bad example, it means that your work is very good. There's not many mistakes. So just click Review and go to Spelling and Grammar on the left-hand side. And what we should see is it come up with some options. This is a little different to the version I'm seeing. Okay, on the right-hand side, you'll now see the suggestions, and you have the option to ignore, which we'll do. So can you see on the right-hand side, the editor for spelling? We'll just ignore that one. And it should then default to the next issue. Okay, so it says Ostley, and you've got a chance to, the reason I'm showing you this is I look at that, where you've got Ostley, Nicholas, I think it should be capital L, capital I at the bottom, at the end of the Ostley, as it is with Comley. Do you agree or disagree? So
no, I agree with that. That was my. Okay. I made a mistake there, John.
Okay, you made a mistake, and and yours is a dreadful example because there's so few mistakes. But what it does is, by going through this exercise, it gives you a chance. You just ignore it if you like. It gives you a chance to look at these things and make the changes that you want. Just for fun, have a look at one of the study guides and do this exercise, and you'll see it'll light up more than Nicholas's document. Okay, so what we're doing is we're just working our way through, and it's giving you a prompt. Now, see, lectures on jurisprudence, I would have thought that should be a small o, not a capital O. Can you see where it is in the middle there? So you've got the blue underlining where it basically the word program is saying, have a look at this, I'm not sure about that one. For those of you that are doing this on your own documents, you may be seeing some similar things, or you may be seeing some other issues. All right, so if you just ignore that one for the moment, Nicholas, and just keep going through this process. I appreciate it, and thank you for volunteering for this. We'll just ignore that as well. Yep, you can add to the dictionary, ignore it. It just gives you the choices. And you'll see there that Comley is now typed in a different manner to what it was previously in your document. That looks possibly not correct. Looks like there's a few things missing there. Territory and state, federal, abbreviated. They might be fine, but it just doesn't quite look right. And then if you could just resume for me, Nicholas, and I really appreciate this. Thank you very much. Just ignore all those. And when you get through this process, it just brings up something else that I want to bring to your attention, which relates to the invitation to Nicholas to tick the readability statistics. So the things that come up here relate to things like grammar issues as well. And those of you that I found a few issues, this is the way I found it. So this program, even though Nicholas hasn't written in the passive voice and hasn't split infinitives, hasn't contracted his language, this is where you pick up all those things. So for me, when I'm doing the Toolkit examining, it's my last chance to really be finicky and fussy, and thank you for allowing me to do that, because it won't happen again in the rest of the course. Okay, so spelling and grammar check is complete. We'll just push OK. And congratulations, Nicholas. Excellent job. Just stay there. Don't get rid of this. What I'm interested in here is this. The readability, the passive sentence is 0. That's why it's such a bad example, but there's just no passive sentences came up at all. The readability, the grade level is 21.6. That's pretty high. That would worry me because it suggests that the level at which this document is pitched is at a grade 21 level, which is well and truly university level. I mean, that's good, but you generally want to try and keep those numbers down for the readability grade level and the reading ease. So this, I've got a feeling that some of the things haven't worked on this document terribly well, but it gives you an idea of how to go through the process. You can cancel that one, Nicholas, but thank you. Appreciate that. Okay, now, so it's back to me. Thank you very much. So do go through that exercise for yourself, and not just for the take-home exam, but generally, It's a really easy way to work out whether you have any issues in relation to grammar, spelling, inconsistencies, and it's an easy way to make the changes as well.
Sorry, John, can I please ask a question?
Yes, David.
You were saying that you want the readability below 21, which is university level. Seeing as this is a university assignment, I understand it's got to be readable for clients, but is there any kind of prescribed number that you'd be looking at?
No, look, not at all. Not at all. That's not part of the feature. But the reason I'm mentioning that is that in light of the manner in which we teach law now, to avoid legalese, to avoid lengthy sentences, it's just a guide for yourself. I don't look at those things. I certainly won't look at the readability statistics as part of the review, but because I've been doing this for so long now, I really don't need to look at that program too carefully to pick up on some of these things, but it's just a guide for yourself, that's all. So I wouldn't stress over that one, David, but thank you for the question.
Okay, thanks. Thanks very much.
Great. Any other questions about the exam or the course? We're all good? All right. I do have a favour to ask, and that is if you could please have your say. I'd appreciate that. I would like to get to 50% response rate. I'm well short of that at the moment.
Will you be?
Yes,
I
David?
guess we won't be seeing you again after. I guess we won't be seeing you again after tonight for this particular subject. Is that right?
No, that's it. Yeah, that's it for this subject. I'll still be on touch with you, crew, and I'll provide some general feedback in terms of the exam. When it comes to the exam itself, you'll probably just get the mark as part of your overall assessment, or you may not even get the mark for the exam. You'll just get basically your grade. But yeah, no, this is it, David. Thank you.
All right. Thanks very much for this semester. Are you doing statutory interpretation next on term 3?
I am, yes. So term 3, I'm doing statutory interpretation.
I'll see you.
That's good.
I'll see you in a few weeks then.
All right, that'll be a pleasure. And for anybody else who's doing statutory interpretation in term 3, we look forward to seeing you as well. Okay, now there's a couple of questions. If the worst happens and someone fails an exam, what's the standard protocol? You can set a supplementary exam, but if you fail the exam itself, and it's only worth 40% of the overall assessment, it's more than likely you'll still pass the subject, because all you need to do is get to 50% for the combined total. So add up what you've already got for your portfolio, add what you've got to the toolbox, you'll know where you're sitting, and you just want to make sure you get to 50%. From there, after that, that's good. If you get more than that, that's great. All right. Well, thank you very much. I'll end the meeting now. Sorry you can't see me because of the technical issues. Good luck with the exam. Try and sleep well, and we'll be in touch from there. Okay. All the best. See you then.
Thanks, John.
Thanks, John.
Bye.